We were just talking. This is not like that time with Brooke, Emily snapped, her voice sharp as she caught Jack's stare. That stare, the same look he always gave her when he thought she was up to something. After almost 4 years of marriage, Jack liked to think he knew his wife pretty well, but in moments like this, he wasn't so sure. They were at a small backyard get-together with friends. Jack had lost sight of her for maybe 10 minutes and found her outside on the deck, chatting with Tyler Morrison, one man Jack couldn't stand more than anyone. Tyler was leaning in, doing that thing he always did with women, flashing that smile like he was the only man in the world who knew how to talk. And Emily got she was doing the things Jack couldn't ignore, brushing her hair behind her ear, laughing too loud, gesturing like she was putting on a show. Jack knew these were just her habits. She always talked with her hands. The hair thing? Pure reflex. He knew that. But at that moment, standing there watching her talk to him, it felt different. It looked different. It looked like interest. The fact that Tyler had more success with women than any guy Jack had ever known didn't help. Tyler walked through life like it owed him admiration. In high school, it was Tyler who caught the 2-point conversion that gave the team the conference title, even though Jack had scored 2 touchdowns that game and made the key tackle that stopped a runaway interception off one of Tyler's terrible passes. No one remembered that. All they remembered was Tyler raising his arms, soaking in the cheers. Same with basketball. Tyler hit a buzzer-beater 3 to send the game into overtime. Never mind the pass came from Jack, who was triple covered at the time. Jack's efforts were always the quiet kind. No drama, no glory, just grit. Even in track, where Jack finally shined running a school record 158.9 half-mile, Tyler still managed to show up somehow. Still, somehow, the face in the yearbook that everyone pointed to. And of course, Tyler was valedictorian. Of course, he gave the speech. Jack graduated with a solid B average, respectable, but no one clapped when he got his diploma. Tyler was always nice, always smiling, always polite. That's what made it worse. You couldn't even hate the guy out loud because there was nothing you could point to. No one else saw it. But Jack felt it in every handshake, every moment Tyler talked down to him with that polite tone, like he was patting a child on the head. And the thing that never sat right? Tyler had dated Emily their junior year, a full year of being that couple. They were inseparable. Tyler moved on to other girls afterward, but Jack had always suspected that Emily never quite shook off the glow of having been his. Jack tried to win her over for months. She always smiled, always kept things light, but there was something distant in her eyes, like she was looking through him. Until that night, during senior year roan of those warm, late autumn evenings, Jack had been biking around town when Emily pulled up beside him on her own bike. They rode for a while, no plan, no pressure, and eventually stopped for sodas at the diner. She laughed, leaned in a little closer than she had before. When he asked her out, she said yes. Jack never had the guts to ask what she and Tyler used to do together. Not really. He didn't want to hear the answer. Did they kiss? Almost certainly. Did they go further? That question stayed lodged in his mind like a pebble in his shootney, but impossible to ignore. So that night at the party, when he told her for what felt like the 20th time that he didn't like her spending time around that guy, she snapped. Tyler's just a nice guy, Jack. We were just talking. And of course, like she always did when she was cornered, she brought up Brooke Evans. What? Emily asked, walking in from the kitchen. Nothing. I guess I didn't know what to expect. But that wasn't it. They've changed. But they're happy. They have 4 kids now, Emily said. Sophie visits them every summer. Jack nodded. That's good. For her. I told Tyler you were coming, Emily added. He always knew I never really let you go. When he asked me to marry him and I said no, he knew it was because of you. Jack reached for her hand. You know, he once told me he always felt like he could never beat me. Emily tilted her head. He told me the same, that he was always chasing something that wasn't his to win. They stood quietly, their hands intertwined. We really messed it up, didn't we? She asked. Yeah, but maybe we've still got time to fix it. They spent the evening together, quiet and soft, Around 9, Jack heard the front door open and voices, followed by Sophie knocking gently on her mom's bedroom door. "Mom?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Is Jack still here?" "Yes." Sophie giggled. "Okay, just checking." She disappeared into her room, and Jack shook his head with a smile. "She's growing up fast," Emily said. "She's incredible," Jack replied. "So, what are we doing here?" Emily looked at him carefully. "Let's try again. For real this time. No more secrets." Jack nodded. "I'd like that." "And if you still see your friend Melissa for massages," she added with a grin, "you'd better book me a session too. Fair's fair." Jack laughed. "Nah, I'd rather you take care of me yourself." "Good," Emily said, wrapping her arms around him, "because that's exactly what I plan to do." And there it was. Emily threw Brooke into the conversation. Again. It had become her default weapon ever since they got married. Every disagreement, every uncomfortable truth, always circled back to that night. That party from over 4 years ago, where Jack had a little too much to drink and lost control. Well, more than a little. It was one of those wild, loud, chaotic college nights. Everyone was young, half-drunk, and pulsing with energy. Jack and Emily had been dating for months by then. Things between them had finally gotten serial-exclusive, emotionally and physically. But their pace wasn't keeping up with the rest of their friends. Most of the couples were already sleeping together. Meanwhile, Jack and Emily were stuck somewhere between heavy petting and full restraint. Sure, she'd let him slip his hands under her shirt, beneath her bra. He could feel her, press against her, even rub her through her underwear. But when things got to the brink, she always pulled back. When they were parked in his old Civic and their makeout sessions got too hot, she'd reach into his pants instead and bring him to release. She seemed to enjoy it, to her breath coming short and fast, soft moans escaping her lips while she handled him. It was all he'd ever known. One night, Jack had asked if she'd done that for anyone else. Emily swore she hadn't, that she only ever made out a little. Jack wanted to believe her, and mostly did. His own experience was minimal, so it made sense that hers was too. She was his girl. That's what he told himself, even when he couldn't stop wondering how far things had gone with Tyler. The thought of Tyler's hands on her, Tyler's mouth on Harriet, was like a stone in Jack's shoe. He could pretend it wasn't there, but every step reminded him. And then came that party. One of the girls there was Brooke Evans, the kind of girl who made heads turn the second she entered a room. Petite, curvy, with a chest that seemed engineered by design to attract attention. Her jeans looked like they were spray-painted on. She knew what she was doing, and she leaned into it. Brooke was practically glued to Tyler that night. It made sense. Tyler came from money. His family owned a chain of auto parts Storeso. He always had the latest sports car, while Jack was still rocking an old Ford that ran on loyalty and duct tape. And of course, Tyler was the guy with a guitar in a band, always with a crowd around him. The feedback screaming from his amp, he called it art. Jack thought it was just noise. Still, Jack could play too. Country stuff. More storytelling, less screeching. He'd bring out his guitar sometimes, strum something warm and honest. That night, he picked up a guitar and joined in when people called for it. And of course, Tyler had to swagger over and say, "Try to keep up," with that same smug grin. Most of the night, Tyler stuck to his rock playlist Creedence, Zeppelin, the Stones. Jack kept pace without blinking. Beer flowed freely. Someone broke out a bottle of vodka, and Jack took a few sips. Tyler eventually leaned his guitar against the amp and stepped away, letting the reverb ring out. Everyone cheered, like he'd done something special. With the noise dialed down, Jack switched gears. He stepped up to the mic and started singing a slow country ballad, something simple, heartfelt. And it worked. The room shifted. People stopped to listen. Couples swayed. Feet tapped. Jack's voice had that raw, earthy edge that country demanded, and he knew it. He caught Brooke's eyes. She was watching him now, standing in the corner, leaning slightly toward the stage, bouncing on the balls of her feet. Her tight top stretched with each subtle movement, and Jack, despite himself, looked He kept playing. Another song. Then another. He was in his zone now, completely at ease, until Tyler returned. Tyler picked up his guitar, glanced at Jack with that familiar smirk, and said, "Let's play some real music." "I can't stand this crap anymore," Tyler said with a tone that might have been a joke, might have even come with a grin, but it was still laced with arrogance. The smugness never left his face. Jack just shrugged, set his guitar aside, and let Tyler take over. No point fighting it. Not worth the energy. Somewhere in the chaos, Jack lost sight of Emily. He was lounging on a smoke-thick couch wedged between two guys, passing a joint back and forth when Brooke suddenly appeared and squeezed into the tiny space beside him. She was practically in his lap. And that was the last clear moment he remembered. The morning came in waves of pain. Jack's head felt like it had been run over by a semi, and his mouth was dry enough to sandwood. His eyes cracked open for a second, too bright, and slammed shut again. Slowly, the room stopped spinning, and he tried once more. This time, he saw a ceiling he didn't recognize. When he turned his head, it confirmed the obvious. This wasn't his bedroom. He rolled over, feet hitting a cold floor, and spotted a doorway, probably the bathroom. Moving like an old man, he made his way in and ran the tap, drinking directly from the sink. Only then did he realize he was stark naked. That brought the panic. He'd had some rough hangovers before, but never like this. He couldn't even remember how he got here, and now the idea of having blacked out at some point, terrifying. As he relieved himself and tried to make sense of it all, he realized this was only the third or fourth time in his life he'd ever been fully, dangerously drunk. He wet a washcloth and wiped his face, trying to piece together the blur. When he returned to the bedroom, he spotted his underwear on the floor, pants nearby. His shirt was slung over a chair. He got dressed quickly and went to the window, looking out at a small backyard that he didn't recognize at all. Definitely not his place. And definitely not Emily's. He needed to get out. Opening the bedroom door, he followed a short hallway that opened into a modest living room where two people middle-aged, vaguely familiar sat reading and sipping coffee. The woman, slightly plump and cheerful, smiled as he entered. "Well, good morning. You must be Brooke's new friend," she said warmly, rising. "Coffee?" Jack blinked. The man beside her, balding and uninterested, gave a curt nod before returning to his newspaper. Jack stammered. "Brooke went to the store. She'll be right back," the woman said, placing a mug in his hand. Jack took a cautious sip and instantly burned his lips. The door swung open. "Hey, Jack, you're up!" Brooke's voice rang out like this was totally normal. "This is my dad, George, and my mom, Linda. I'll get breakfast started." She disappeared into the kitchen like they were a long-time couple, and this was just a lazy Sunday morning. Jack sat stiffly on the couch, his brain still trying to catch up. "How long have you two been seeing each other?" Linda asked kindly. Jack swallowed hard. "We, met at a party." "Well, don't be shy," she said with a wink. "We're open-minded here. And don't worry, we had Brooke on the pill as soon as she hit puberty." Jack nearly choked on the coffee. That was a lot. And that's when it truly hit him. He had no idea what happened. No memory of how he got into Brooke's bed. Just a pounding hangover. And now this surreal domestic morning with strangers, his stomach flipped. He mumbled something and bolted to the bathroom, vomiting hard enough that his knees nearly gave out. Behind him, he could hear George mutter, "Damn kids these days. Can't hold their liquor." Jack barely managed a goodbye as he grabbed his things and stumbled toward the door. They looked at him like he'd just kicked their dog. He didn't care. He just wanted to get the hell out. Outside, he realized he wasn't far from the party house. A few blocks, at most. His old Ford was still parked out front, keys hanging from the ignition like some weird miracle. He slid in, started it, and drove home. His mom was in the kitchen. "Where have you been, honey?" "There was a lot of drinking at the party, so I didn't drive," he said, keeping it vague. "Good. That's smart. Oh, your girlfriend called. Several times. She went back to mixing something in a bowl. Emily. God. Jack staggered to his room, glanced at the clock. It was almost 11 a.m., then collapsed on the bed. Sleep swallowed him whole. When he woke, the sun was setting. He wandered into the living room, where his mom sat watching the news. "There's stew on the stove," she said, "and you should really call your girlfriend, honey." "She seems really angry with you," Jack's mom said gently, and that was putting it mildly. Jack didn't want to call Emily. He already knew what the conversation would sound like, but eventually, he gave in. And just like he expected, it was a storm from the first word. She was furious, demanding to know where he'd been, what had happened, and what the hell he thought he was doing. Cornered and already raw, Jack told her the truth, at least part of it. He said he had gotten way too drunk, ended up crashing somewhere unfamiliar, and that he woke up at Brooke's house, confused and hungover. "You slept with her, didn't you?" Emily screamed. Jack hesitated. He told her he didn't remember. That's when she calmed down just a little. So he doubled down, told her there was no way he could have done anything. That he was too drunk, probably passed out. It was a lie, of course. He remembered pieces Brooke undressing him, the soft, teasing dance, her laugh echoing somewhere in the haze. The rest? A blur. But Jack was nearly certain that something had happened. What he didn't know was how or why he hadn't stopped it. Emily seemed to believe him for a heartbeat, maybe two, but then she snapped again. Jack, desperate to derail the fight, asked where she had gone when she disappeared at the party. "When I came out of the damn bathroom, you were gone," she shot back. "So Tyler drove me home." He asked her, again pleaded this time, if she truly thought he'd slept with Brooke. "I don't know. I don't remember any of this," he insisted. "Bullshit," she spat, and hung up on him. But Jack remembered more than he let on. He remembered Brooke taking his hand, leading him upstairs. Remembered how she peeled off his shirt, how her lips felt soft and warm. Beyond that, shadows, shapes, nothing clear. But he was pretty sure he hadn't just slept in her bed. Something happened. What exactly? He couldn't say, but it wasn't nothing. And now, just like that, he might have lost Emily. He tried calling her a few times after, but she refused to pick up. He left messages that went unanswered. And then, like a final twist of the knife, he found out from a friend that Emily had moved out, transferred to her grandmother's place to finish out her pre-med program. A few days later, he ran into Brooke. She smiled, tried to strike up a conversation. Jack shut her down cold. She gave a small shrug and walked away like it meant nothing. A year passed. One afternoon, Jack was sitting on a concrete ledge near campus, a dense engineering textbook open in his lap, when a voice hit him like a shot of cold water. "Hi, Jack." He knew who it was before he even looked up. There she stood, Emily, looking radiant, sharper than ever. Something in him jolted. She was somehow even more beautiful now, and it did nothing to settle the rush of emotion that hit him. He smiled tightly, guarded. "Hey, good to see you." It started again, just like that. A week later, they were seeing each other regularly. Within a month, they were exclusive. Within 6, they were married, one of the rare married couples on campus. During all that time, she never mentioned that night, and Jack sure as hell didn't bring it up. Let the past stay buried, right? They talked about waiting for marriage before sleeping together. That plan lasted until about a month before the wedding. It just happened, and it was incredible, natural. Like everything they'd been waiting for had finally fallen into place. After that, they were all over each other every chance they got. Jack never even thought about protection. Neither did she. It was daily, almost religious, and somehow she didn't get pregnant. A week before the wedding, she started birth control. But still, he wondered how they got that lucky. It wasn't until a month after the wedding that Emily finally brought it up. Jack had picked up his guitar, just fooling around, and started strumming "Knockin' on Heaven's Door," the same song he played at that party. The moment he hit the second chord, her face changed. "That's the song you played that night," she said, her voice flat. She stared at him, that sour look taking over her features, and then silently stood up and walked into the bedroom, locking the door behind her. The next day, she acted like it never happened. Jack followed her lead and never played that song again. Not at home, not anywhere. Life moved on. Jack graduated with his engineering degree and quickly landed a solid job. He had considered going back for his master's, but the paycheck was too good to pass up. Emily would be making decent money once she graduated med school, and they figured Jack could always return to school later. They scrimped, saved, and bought a modest 2-bedroom home in the suburbs. Not glamorous, but it was theirs. The only catch? It was more than an hour's drive from Emily's campus. But Jack's new job was nearby, and they agreed it was worth the sacrifice. At least, that's what they told themselves. Jack couldn't quite understand why Emily had picked this house. It complicated everything. The commute to med school was brutal, and she often stayed near campus, sometimes for a day or two at a time, just to avoid the long drive. Financially, the mortgage consumed a huge chunk of his paycheck, so they decided to postpone having kids until after she finished her nursing program. That period of their lives was rough. Emily was frequently gone for 24-hour clinical rotations, sometimes longer. Their schedules never aligned. Jack would be home alone for days, and even on weekends when she could have come back, their timing was off. She'd often say it wasn't worth the drive and stay on campus, all the girls do it, she'd say. Whenever the old party incident came up, it always sparked arguments. Emily would get defensive, sulk, or shut down entirely. Sometimes she'd take it so far that she wouldn't come home at all, even when she could. A couple of times a year, it was the same story. Some vague excuse followed by a sudden trip to visit her parents, who now lived over 1,000 miles away. Jack didn't mind the space. He'd grown used to being alone by then and told himself it would all be over soon. Emily was almost done with school. When she was home, she acted like nothing else in the world mattered but them. The contrast was always striking a few intense days together, then apart again like clockwork. Still, he clung to those little moments because they were all he had. Then one weekend, while Emily was away visiting her mother, Jack bumped into an old friend from their college days, Ben Carter, the kind of loud, hilarious guy who somehow always had beautiful women clinging to him despite his beer gut and greasy hair. The guy was magnetic in the weirdest way. Ben bought the first round of beers and suggested they catch up. They met at an old bar Jack knew well but rarely visited anymore. Jack kept it light, 1 beer, maybe 2. They chatted about the good old days, laughing about dumb college pranks and failed relationships. Then Ben asked the question, "So, how's Emily, you lucky bastard?" He grinned, reaching for his glass. Jack nodded, keeping his tone casual. "She can be high-strung, but she keeps the place running." Ben chuckled. "Yeah, I bet. Man, all of us wanted Emily back then. She was Sisa knockout." Jack's eyes narrowed slightly. "That so?" Ben nodded. "Took her out a couple of times, actually. After you guys broke up that one time." Jack tensed. "I didn't know that." Ben caught the reaction and quickly backpedaled. Hey, nothing serious. Just a couple kisses. She wasn't that into me." Jack wasn't buying it. "You said nothing serious? What does that even mean?" Ben grinned sheepishly. "Come on, man. We were kids. Most girls did stuff. She just let me, get a little handsy, like she did with you." Jack stiffened. "She told me she never did that with anyone else." Ben raised an eyebrow. "Really? Huh." Then, almost as an afterthought, Ben added, "I always thought the baby was yours anyway." Jack blinked. "Baby?" Ben frowned. "You didn't know? She got pregnant." Jack stood up so fast his stool rocked back. "What?" "Crap. I figured you knew. She talked about you constantly. I just assumed." Jack stared at him in disbelief. "What happened to the baby?" "No idea, man. One day she was just gone. Heard she went to med school. That's all I know." Jack didn't say goodbye. He left the bar and drove home in silence, Ben's words ringing in his ears. Pregnant? She'd never told him that. Never even hinted. What the hell happened? Emily got back 2 days later. and Jack didn't wait. "I ran into Ben Carter the other day," he said casually while she was unpacking groceries. "Ben?" she asked, not looking at him. "You remember him, loud guy, always with a new girl." "Oh, Ben. Yeah. I think I dated him once or twice back when we broke up." Jack studied her face. "He said you didn't do much." "We didn't," Emily said carefully, but Jack could already see the shift in her expression. "He also said you were doing stuff with guys, things you swore you never did before me." Emily's cheeks went red. "Jack, I asked you, Emily. I asked you, and you told me no." Her voice was a whisper now. "I'm sorry." That was all she said. Sorry. Just a single word that landed like a rock in his gut. She looked like she wanted to explain, like she had more to say, but Jack turned and walked into the other room. He needed space. Because now there were even more questions than answers, and for the first time in years, he wasn't sure if he was ready to hear them. "I didn't want to upset you. That's all. We weren't even together then. I didn't think we ever would be," Emily said quietly, her voice shaking. "I guess I was just looking." She looked up. "Are you angry about this?" Jack shook his head, though not with much conviction. "No, not really. But Ben said something strange." Emily tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "He said you were pregnant." The color drained from Emily's face. Then, suddenly, it returned in a hot flush as her eyes welled up. "Oh my God," she whispered, then burst into tears and fled the room. Jack heard the bedroom door slam shut behind her. "Emily," he called, walking over and knocking gently. "We need to talk about this." No answer. He tried again, softer, still nothing. After 30 minutes of silence, frustration overtook him. Jack grabbed his keys and left. He drove aimlessly for a while, then checked into a small motel on the edge of town. He barely slept, tossing and turning all night, trying to make sense of what the hell had just happened. The next morning, Jack went home. Emily wasn't there. He called her phone, no answer. Then he called her parents. Her mother answered coldly, "We don't know where she is." Then her father got on the line. "What did you do this time?" he asked sharply. "I didn't do anything," Jack replied, exhausted. "Sure," the man snapped. "I told her not to marry you. Said you'd cheat on her again. If you hurt my Emily." Jack hung up. Work didn't offer much distraction. He couldn't concentrate. His head spun with questions. Pregnant? Ben said it so casually, like it was something everyone had known but him. There'd been nearly a full year when he hadn't seen Emily. What had happened during that time? If she'd had a child, where was the child now? And more importantly, whose was it? For the next week, Jack called everyone he could think of. Friends, classmates, anyone who might know where Emily had gone. Nobody knew. He even considered hiring a private investigator. Then, on Saturday morning, just as he was about to make the call, Emily's car pulled into the driveway. He rushed outside. "Where the hell have you been?" he asked sharply. "I was visiting friends," she said calmly. "Who?" he demanded. "We'll get to that," she said, brushing past him into the house. "But right now, we need to talk." She sat on the couch. Jack stood for a moment before reluctantly sitting in the armchair. "I had a baby girl," she said, her voice steady. "I already figured that out," Jack replied. "You should have told me." "I was scared of how you'd react," she said. "We weren't even together then. Everything was so messy. You could have just said something." "I couldn't," she took a deep breath, "because she's Doug's daughter." Jack felt the air leave his lungs. "Doug?" His voice was barely a whisper. "It happened that night, at the party. You disappeared. I asked everyone where you were. Nobody said anything. One of the girls told me she saw you leave with Sherry." Jack closed his eyes. "Oh God." "I was angry," Emily went on. "And I was hurt. I was ready that night. I'd made up my mind. I even bought protection. But you? I thought you'd left me." She was crying now. "Doug drove me home. He was sweet. He kissed me. And it happened. I didn't even use the damn protection. It was like I was in some stupid movie. Jack just stared at her. Doug, of all people. When I found out about Sherry, she continued, I was devastated. But we were already over. I tried to move on. When I found out I was pregnant, Doug stepped in. He paid for everything. My mom and dad sent me to stay with my grandmother during the pregnancy. I gave birth to Danielle. Jack flinched at the name. You named her after me. She nodded. Doug didn't like it, but I did it anyway. He raised her while I went back to school. He was a good father. I'll give him that. Even asked me to marry him. I almost said yes for her. But then I met you again. I transferred schools and saw you, and I just knew. I didn't love Doug. I never did. It was always you. And when you said you went to visit friends this week, she looked down. I went to see Danielle. And Doug. Did you sleep with him? Jack's voice was hoarse. She shook her head violently. Number God. No, I couldn't. I wouldn't. I needed to see her. Jack didn't say anything. I'm sorry, Jack. I really am. He stood slowly. I need time to think. She nodded, silent tears streaming down her face as he walked to the door. And just like that, everything they'd built was hanging by a thread frayed by secrets, guilt, and the ghosts of a single drunken night. I said Doug really is a good person. Of course he is, Jack snapped, his voice sharp with bitterness. I can only imagine what went on all those times I was away. Probably more than a couple of your visits turned into something else. No, Emily said quickly. He's getting married now. My daughter will have a stable home. That's what matters. That's what's best for her. Jack blinked. Getting married? To who? Sherry, Emily replied quietly. She's changed, Jack. She's matured. They're happy now. And Danielle will be too. They told me I can visit whenever I want. Visit? Jack said. Then it clicked. It's been 4 years since, God. All those times you suddenly had to visit your parents more than 1,000 miles away, and those insanely long shifts at school, every time we started talking about Sherry, you'd leave. You were using her as an excuse, weren't you? Emily didn't try to deflect. Yes, she said, barely above a whisper. At Doug's house? Jack asked, his jaw tightening. She nodded. Yes, but we didn't do anything, Jack. Nothing happened. I was just there to see Danielle. He stared at her, the hurt rising again. I don't know if I believe that. It's true, she said quickly. After I met you again, Doug and I never, ever again. I swear to God, I'm really sorry, Jack. Her voice broke, and quiet tears spilled down her cheeks. I think you need to leave, Jack said, standing slowly. I need time to think. This is too much. Emily walked to the door. Then she paused, turning around to face him one last time. I'm really sorry, Jack. I love you. I'll never keep anything from you again. Jack didn't say a word as she walked out, climbed into her car, and drove off. He stood in the doorway for a while, the silence of the house crashing in around him. When the divorce was finalized, Emily wouldn't accept anything but her car. Her lawyer tried to fight for more, but Jack shut it down with a firm, cutting tone. She wants nothing? Then let it be nothing. The lawyer turned red but said no more. Emily signed the papers in silence, looked at Jack for a moment that stretched too long, then turned and walked out without saying a single word. Jack buried himself in work. He put in longer hours, took on more responsibility, but nothing filled the void. He tried dating again twice. He even brought women home, but nothing clicked. They weren't Emily. Eventually, he gave up and settled into a numb routine. Go to work, come home, cook dinner, watch television, fall asleep alone. One night, while flipping through classifieds out of sheer boredom, he saw an ad for massage services. A woman named Carla. She was attractive, in a distant way. The initial $60 visit soon became a $120 weekly escape. There was no emotional connection, no need to perform. Jack could lie back, let Carla do her thing, and lose himself in most often thoughts of Emily. Carla occasionally asked if he wanted more topless, nude, or beyond. He always shook his head. She seemed puzzled by that, but never pushed. Months passed like this. Then one night, as Carla gathered her things, Jack asked her plainly, "Would you be open to more?" She smiled, said nothing, and undressed. They didn't talk about it afterward. The pattern continued. Work, home, Carla, sleep. It wasn't love, but it dulled the ache. Over time, Jack's career took off. He was promoted to regional manager with a generous salary, stock options, and regular travel. Life became stable again, even if joyless. More than 5 years had passed when Jack walked into a conference room in Dallas for a routine client visit. It didn't go well, and he had to extend his stay. He booked a hotel, rented a small car, and tried to focus. The next morning, he had just pulled out of the hotel lot, headed for the plant, when everything turned white. A van had blown through a stop sign and slammed into his side. Bright lights, voices, pain, then stillness. Jack opened his eyes slowly. The room was sterile and bright. His limbs felt heavy. "Good morning, sir," said a woman in white with kind eyes. "You're awake. That's good." Where am I?" Jack croaked. "You're in the hospital," she said. "You were in a car accident. You needed surgery, and things were touch and go for a while, but you're stable now." Jack tried to sit up, but pain stopped him. "I need to get back to work," he mumbled. "You're not going anywhere yet," the nurse said gently. "Besides, you've already been here 10 days. 10? Jack blinked, stunned. 10 days? "Just lie still, sweetheart," she said. "We'll get you back on your feet soon." And as Jack stared at the ceiling, the weight of those 10 lost days began to settle like the years he'd lost, trying to forget Emily. "I'll call the doctor," she said, and slipped out of the room. Jack leaned back and felt sleep threatening to take him under again. A few minutes passed before an older man in a white coat came in, gently nudging him awake. The doctor spoke in a calm, matter-of-fact tone, explaining that Jack had been in a coma due to a severe head injury and swelling in the brain. Jack listened numbly, but then something else registered. His ankle was throbbing. He reached down to rub it and nothing, just empty air. A cold wave of panic surged through him. "What the hell?" he croaked. The doctor looked down, apologetic but distant, as if he'd done this too many times to carry the weight of each case. "We couldn't save your left leg, Mr. Thompson. It was too damaged. We've placed a titanium pin so you'll be able to use a prosthesis." "Jesus Christ," Jack muttered, staring at the ceiling. He felt hollowed out, like something essential had been ripped from him. "I'm really sorry," the doctor added, but it sounded like a script he recited every week. The rest of the day was a blur of resentment and grief. Here he was, trapped in a hospital in a city far from home, down one leg, his life derailed. For a moment, he even flirted with the thought that maybe this was it, that maybe it should be. But by evening, the storm inside him quieted a little. There was nothing he could do now. He had to deal with it. Then he heard a voice, soft and familiar. "Hey, Jack." He opened his eyes. Standing in the doorway was Emily Ross, holding a tray, smiling. His heart jumped. He hadn't seen her in what felt like a lifetime. "Emily," he said, dumbfounded. "What? What are you doing here?" "I work here," she said simply. "I've been your night nurse." He blinked. "You're kidding." She smiled wider. "Nope. I've been with you since the night they brought you in. Been here every night." Jack didn't know what to say. The woman he'd tried so hard to forget was suddenly feeding him mashed potatoes in a hospital bed halfway across the country. She helped him sit up and arranged his food. "So what brought you here?" he asked after a few bites. She shrugged. "I saw a job posting for nurses, and I applied. I needed a change. A fresh start. Too many memories back home." He looked her over, carefully, without trying to be obvious. She had changed, filled out some. She was softer now, rounder, The sharp edges of her youth had melted into something more grounded. Still beautiful, but different. Real. "You married?" he asked, trying to sound casual. She looked away. "Number Daniel takes up most of my time." Jack blinked. "Daniel? I thought Tyler and Brooke had custody." "They did," Emily said. "But when I told Tyler I was moving out here, I asked for custody back." He agreed. Jack let that sink in. "She's 14 now?" "Yeah," Emily said, her voice trailing with pride. She came back after clearing his tray, this time with a basin and towels. "I need to clean you up a bit. Move your legs. Keep the blood circulating." "Okay," he said. She worked with careful, practiced hands, massaging his calf and thigh, washing the skin with gentle strokes. When she got to his groin, she covered him modestly with a towel and avoided eye contact. Jack noticed the flush on her cheeks but said nothing. "Why didn't you ever marry?" she asked quietly. He shrugged. "Never met anyone who made me want to." She paused, then nodded, her eyes softening. "I get that." That night, Jack dreamed of her, not of any specific time, but of a feeling her beside him, her laugh, her warmth. By the time he was up on his new prosthesis, walking with barely a limp, the last day had arrived. Emily wheeled him out to the taxi. When he stood to get in, he turned and wrapped his arms around her. She held him close, and just before they pulled apart, he saw a tear she wiped away quickly, pretending it didn't happen. Back at home, Jack tried to return to normal, work, routine. But 3 days in, he couldn't take it. He picked up the phone and called. "Hello?" a girl's voice answered. "Hi," Jack said. "Is your mom there?" "She's upstairs," the girl answered. "But she'll be down soon." "Are you Danielle?" "Yeah, who is this?" "My name's Jack. I used to be married to your mom." Silence. Then, muffled behind a hand over the receiver. "Mom! It's him! It's Jack!" Emily's voice came through, breathless. "Jack?" "Hey," he said, his voice quiet. "I was wondering, would you like to have dinner?" There was a pausion heartbeat. "Maybe Toothin'," she answered. "Yes, I'd really like that," Emily said quietly. "Can you pick me up from the airport? I'm arriving today at 6 p.m. "Yes, I'll be there," Jack replied, already feeling the surge of something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. As he hung up, he heard soft giggling in the background, and he smiled without realizing it. At the arrivals terminal, Jack walked toward the tram leading to the exit when he spotted her, Emily, standing tall, calm, composed. Next to her stood a young girl, taller than he expected, with Emily's sharp jawline and a slightly darker tone to her skin, her smile wide and familiar. Sophie. Jack hugged Emily first. She responded, warm but a little reserved. Sophie watched, eyes bright with curiosity. They drove back through city traffic, Emily handling the wheel with quiet confidence. At the apartment, the three sat down and started talking. Sophie was shy at first, but slowly opened up, chatting about school, her friends, and what music she liked. Jack listened, absorbed in this new piece of his life, trying not to overthink the fact that this bright, lovely girl was Tyler Morrison's daughter. But that didn't seem to matter. Sophie was herself smart, funny, curious, not a living reminder of old mistakes, but something entirely new. Jack noticed a few glances between her and Emily, unspoken exchanges that told him they'd talked about him already, and that this wasn't just a casual visit. After a while, Sophie excused herself to get ready for bed. Emily looked at Jack, her eyes soft. "I was going to make something here," she offered. "I was actually hoping to take you out somewhere nice," Jack said. "I'd rather stay and talk," she replied with a smile. Jack hesitated. "I do have a room booked in the city center. I can take a cab later." "No," Emily said gently. "Don't be silly. The couch folds out." Jack smiled back, touched by the offer. "It's been a long time," he said. "I know," she replied. "I keep thinking about what might have been." He stood, and so did she. When he reached for her, She stepped into his arms. It felt familiar, real, like something that had been waiting to happen. The couch never got folded out. Later, Emily helped him remove his prosthetic leg. She didn't flinch. She just placed it gently aside and kissed his shoulder. Jack heard a soft giggle later, then the creak of a bedroom door closing. That first night together didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like a long-delayed promise being kept. Emily's body had changed, but everything about her was still unmistakably her, and she seemed to think the same. The next morning, Jack woke up disoriented for a moment. Then he heard quiet voices from the kitchen. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Sophie said brightly when he walked in. Emily was already at the table and stood to pour him a mug of coffee. "It's almost noon," she said with a raised eyebrow. "We were about to call 911, Sophie joked. They all laughed, and Jack sat down while Emily began plating breakfast-thick pancakes, scrambled eggs, crispy bacon. His heart ached in the best way. "When do you have to leave?" Emily asked, sipping from her own mug. Jack noticed a glance pass between her and Sophie. "I took some vacation. I can go whenever," he replied. "Why?" Emily hesitated. "Tyler's coming by this afternoon. He and Brooke take Sophie on weekends." Jack froze for a moment, the name hitting him like cold water. He fought the instinct to stand and leave. "It's fine," he said after a breath. "I'll get a room." "There's no need. They usually just take her and leave. You won't have to see him," she said gently. Jack nodded, but he couldn't help but feel tense. When the knock came, it was like a reflex. Sophie ran to the door and opened it. "Hey, Dad!" Jack looked up and froze. The tall, blonde, charming Tyler Morrison of his memory was now balding, slightly overweight, and wearing outdated glasses. Next to him stood Brooke, also heavier and far from the flawless beauty she used to be. They barely looked at Jack. A quick handshake, a few words, and they were gone. As the door shut behind them, Jack laughed quietly.